So, neat little thing to consider is about leaves changing color. All right, so we talked about the fact that there are different pigments. All right, the different pigments in plants are what's responsible for this. Easiest thing for me to tell you is that chlorophyll, which we tend to think about as being the one that gives us green color, is always in leaves. Well, most leaves. It's usually the dominant pigment. There are some exceptions. Then, you have something called xanthophyll. This is the yellow. Then you have those, oops, it's supposed to be an E, carotenoids. Those are the orange, red, all right, those shades. Now I listed here based on durability, strength. Chlorophyll is weak, it's a sissy, all right? It's looking for sunlight, it's looking for water, all right? It's looking for carbon dioxide, it's looking for warm temperatures. The minute things get tough, the minute days are a little shorter, or maybe there's a little less water, or maybe it gets a little chilly one night, chlorophyll gives up and starts to break down. So you start to see leaves that are yellowish, maybe a little green still in them as the chlorophyll's breaking down, but the yellow starts to really shine through, all right? Because the yellow, the xanthophylls, are the next strongest. But they're not really tough either. So the colder it gets, all right, and the less sunlight there is, the more they start to think about packing up and being done too. And they start to break down. And as they break down, the next pigment starts to show through, which are those carotenoids, the oranges, the reds, all right? They finally are no longer masked by the xanthophyll or the chlorophyll, and the carotenoids start to show up, and you start to see oranges and reds. But again, they can't stick around forever. It gets too cold, not enough sunlight, and eventually the carotenoids give up, all right? And the leaf starts to fade, and what you get is a brown leaf. Brown, it's dead. But when a leaf is red, when a leaf is yellow, when a leaf is green, all those stages in the autumn, the leaf is still alive, all right? It's just slowly starting to break down those pigments because of the change in the environment. So you need to keep in mind that those different pigments are always present. You just may not see them all year long. So, another thing to consider, environmental factors. We should know water is necessary. It's one of our reactants, right? Plants need water. If they don't have water, they can't do photosynthesis. They can't make their food. We also talked about earlier what happens when water enters a plant cell. We know that it fills up that central vacuole, right? Pushes out on the cell wall. That cell becomes very plump, very rigid, and you wind up with a nice, strong plant that stands upright. We know that the water is going to climb, all right, by using adhesion. That adhesion is going to cause capillary action. Then we have sunlight. Should be easy for you guys to understand. More sunlight means more photosynthesis. More photosynthesis means more energy, right? More energy means more bonds can be formed. More bonds that can be formed means that you're going to have more glucose that's being made, all right? Step by step by step by step, sunlight is energy, all right? And it's energy, so when I talk about more energy, I mean energy being supplied to the plant. The sunlight supplies energy that the plant uses to then create glucose, create its food source. That plant requires that sunlight for that particular job. And more glucose, more food, we already know more food means more storage, more survival. Carbon dioxide, same thing. If it's a reactant, if it's something that's needed to start that particular chemical reaction, typically the more of it there is, the better off the reaction is going to be. So more CO2 is going to mean more photosynthesis. And more photosynthesis is going to mean more food for the plant, more oxygen for us also. Other cool thing to know, is that there are actually greenhouses that pump CO2 into their greenhouse to make their plants healthier, because the plants need the CO2. Remember when we, oh, you guys didn't watch Mythbusters. Remind me to show you guys some Mythbusters, all right? And I'll show you guys a little clip on Mythbusters, and we can talk about carbon dioxide effects on plants. Wake Forest University is a particular place where they are actually using that, adding carbon dioxide. They're actually adding it into an entire forest to see if they can fix the health of the trees in that forest. So, just a little recap. Water, sunlight, carbon dioxide, all right, those things, typically, as they increase, photosynthesis only gets better. There is obviously going to be a point where the plant is doing everything it can. The chloroplast, the chlorophyll, there's nothing left to do photosynthesis. It's all maxed out. So no matter how much more sunlight or how much more water, you can't really improve past the point of max. Then we've got temperature. There's always optimal temperature. All living things have an ideal temperature range because the enzymes that do their chemical reactions, that speed up, trigger, take care of those chemical reactions. Remember, we said enzymes were really picky. They have specific environments that they like. When the environment is not ideal, those enzymes start to be destroyed and no longer work properly. And that's a huge problem. So, in the next couple of classes, we're going to have benchmarks on stage 1 and stage 2, the 2 steps of photosynthesis, and you guys are going to get to find out exactly how much detail goes into each of these 2 separate steps for photosynthesis. All right, we'll elaborate more on those on later benchmarks.